Just last Sunday, Lillian decided it was time to declutter the attic, starting with what seemed like an old, dusty toy box. As she hauled it to the curb, her son Caleb spotted it from his bedroom window and raced downstairs, breathless and panic-stricken. His next words sent a chill through her. "Mom, why did you throw it away?" Lillian wiped the sweat from her brow, stepping back to survey the piles of forgotten stuff that had been gathering dust in the attic over the years. Beside her, the old, faded toy box seemed innocent, hardly worth a second glance. However, when she dragged it across the wooden floor towards the staircase, the scrape of its surprisingly heavy weight against the boards echoed forebodingly through the quiet house. Caleb's room was a mess of school books and scattered clothes, a true kid's room. From his window, he caught a glimpse of his mother Lillian dragging the heavy toy box down the stairs towards the curb. His heart sank. He had always meant to go through it one more time, just to make sure nothing important was left inside. But it looked like he'd waited too long. "Mom, why did you throw it away?" Caleb's voice cracked as he sprinted down the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time. Lillian stopped in her tracks, surprised by the panic in her son's voice. She hadn't seen him this distraught since he had been a very small boy, after losing his favorite toy at the park. "It's just old junk, Caleb," she reassured, not fully understanding his distress. "But it's not!" Caleb exclaimed, his breath shallow and quick. "There's something important in there. I need to check it first." Lillian frowned, puzzled by her son's insistence. She'd never seen him be so attached to an item. To her, there was little importance to what she considered mere childhood relics. Reluctantly, Lillian hauled the box back inside, setting it down with a thud in the living room. Caleb quickly knelt beside it, his hands trembling as he lifted the lid. The contents looked exactly as Lillian remembered. A jumble of old action figures, old primary school awards, and broken crayons. She couldn't for the life of her understand Caleb's uncharacteristic reaction to the box. "Look," Lillian said, trying to soothe Caleb. "Everything is just as you left it." Lillian hoped to ease the tension that had risen. Caleb didn't respond. His eyes were scanning the contents of the box, searching. His hand swept aside a layer of toys, reaching deeper. His fingers paused over a false bottom in the box, a secret compartment that Lillian hadn't noticed until now. "What's that?" Lillian asked. Her curiosity piqued as Caleb hesitated with his little hand on the rim of the secret compartment. "Nothing, I'll look at it later," he muttered, a flush creeping up his neck. Lillian watched her son close the compartment and snap the toy box shut. Something wasn't right, but Lillian decided not to press the issue until later, giving Caleb a moment to calm down. Dinner was quiet that night. Lillian watched Caleb pushing his food around his plate, lost in thought. The sight of the hidden compartment in the toy box nagged at her. She wanted to respect her son's privacy, but her maternal instincts told her that whatever was bothering him might be more serious than she'd first thought. Later, as Caleb was laying in his bed and started at the ceiling, the memory of finding the lost item returned in vivid detail. He remembered the day he found it, tucked away in the park, barely visible under a bush. It had gleamed beautifully in the sun, catching his eye immediately. Of course, he'd intended to return it, but fear had gotten the better of him. Now, the guilt was too much to bear. Caleb knew he couldn't hide it forever. Tomorrow, he would have to face his fears and come clean to his mother. He would start by talking to her and being honest, hoping she could help him figure out what to do. As sleep finally claimed him, he made a silent promise to resolve the matter, no matter how daunting it seemed. The morning sun broke through the blinds, waking Caleb with its warm touch. He rose, feeling the weight of yesterday's discoveries. The promise he made the night before lingered in his mind, urging him to take action. As he stretched, He glanced at the toy box sitting innocently in the corner. Caleb's resolve strengthened. Today, he would face the truth. He couldn't keep running from it. He had to tell his mother about the ring and finally lift the burden off his shoulders. He brushed his teeth and combed his hair, his reflection in the mirror mirroring his inner turmoil about the secret ring. Caleb's stomach churned with anxiety, the reality of his situation settling in. He rinsed his mouth, staring at himself, trying to muster the courage he needed. The secret had weighed on him for so long, and now it was time to let it go. He splashed water on his face, hoping it would wash away his fear, if only for a moment. Caleb's mind raced with ways to broach the topic with his mother, Lillian, as he put on his school clothes. Should he tell her before school, or wait until he got home? Would she be angry or disappointed? He fiddled with his shirt buttons, replaying different scenarios in his head. Caleb knew there was no perfect way to do it, but honesty was his only option. He couldn't keep the secret any longer. He took a deep breath, ready to face the day. He hesitated at his bedroom door, taking a deep breath before stepping out to face the day and his mother. The hallway felt longer than usual, every step echoing his anxiety. Caleb paused, his hand on the doorknob, trying to steady his nerves. It was now or never. He couldn't let fear hold him back. With another deep breath, he opened the door, stepping into the morning light. He had to trust that his mother would understand and help him find a solution. Walking into the kitchen, Caleb fidgeted with his backpack straps, mustering the courage to reveal his hidden find. Lillian was at the stove, humming softly as she made breakfast. Caleb's heart pounded in his chest, the words stuck in his throat. He approached the table, setting his backpack down, his fingers trembling. Lillian glanced at him, her smile warm and inviting. "Good morning, honey. Breakfast is almost ready." Caleb nodded, trying to find the right moment to speak, hoping he could find the strength. At breakfast, Caleb toyed with his cereal, stalling for time before he could no longer hold back the truth. His spoon traced lazy circles in the bowl, the clinking sound drawing Lillian's attention. She raised an eyebrow, noticing his unusual behavior. Caleb took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. He knew he couldn't delay much longer. The secret was too heavy to keep inside any longer. He just needed the right moment to start the conversation. Lillian noticed Caleb's unusual quietness and prodded him gently, sensing his need to share something important. "Caleb, is everything all right?" she asked, her voice soft and concerned. Caleb looked up, meeting her eyes. The worry in her gaze made him feel a mix of relief and anxiety. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. Lillian leaned in, giving him her full attention, ready to listen to whatever was troubling her son. With a shaky voice, Caleb confessed about finding the wedding ring in the park and his fear that had led to hiding it. "I found it a long time ago," he admitted, looking down at his hands. "I was scared and didn't know what to do, so I hid it in the toy box." Lillian's eyes widened in surprise, but she remained calm. "You found a wedding ring?" she asked gently. Caleb nodded, feeling a weight lift slightly as he shared his secret. He led Lillian to the toy box, revealing the ring's hiding spot, his eyes pleading for understanding and help. Caleb knelt beside the box, lifting the lid and carefully opening the secret compartment. There it was, the ring, gleaming under the light. Lillian watched, her expression softening as she saw the hidden treasure. Caleb glanced up at her, worry and hope mixed in his eyes. "I didn't mean to keep it for so long," he whispered. "I just didn't know what to do." Lillian listened, her expression softening into a supportive smile, promising they would find the ring's rightful owner together. She placed a reassuring hand on Caleb's shoulder. "It's okay, Caleb," she said softly. "We'll figure this out together." Caleb felt a rush of relief at her words. Lillian carefully took the ring, examining it closely. "We'll start by finding out who it belongs to," she continued, her smile warm and encouraging. Caleb nodded, feeling the weight of his secret finally lifting. Reassured by his mother's reaction, Caleb hurried to get ready for school, feeling a bit lighter. He brushed his hair and put on his favorite shirt, the one with the blue stripes. The knot in his stomach had loosened, replaced by a sense of relief. As he grabbed his backpack, he caught a glimpse of his mother smiling at him from the doorway. Her support meant everything to him. Today felt different, better, as if a heavy cloud had finally lifted. Lillian packed his lunch, slipping in a note of encouragement, reinforcing her support for his decision to come clean. As Caleb finished tying his shoes, she handed him the lunchbox with a wink. "Here you go, champ," she said, her tone light and reassuring. Caleb opened the lid slightly and saw the folded note. He smiled, knowing his mom always had his back. It was a small gesture, but it filled him with the courage he needed for the day ahead. She helped him put on his jacket and backpack, ensuring he felt prepared not just for school, but for the responsibility he faced. "You're all set," Lillian said, adjusting the straps. Caleb took a deep breath, feeling more ready with every passing second. "Thanks, Mom," he replied, giving her a quick hug. Lillian squeezed his shoulder. "Remember, we'll handle the ring situation together after school." Caleb nodded, appreciating her constant support. It made the day's challenge seem a little less daunting. At the car, Lillian reassured Caleb once more, promising they would work on returning the ring after school. "Don't worry about it too much today," she said as they buckled up. "Focus on your classes, and we'll figure everything out later." Caleb glanced at her, feeling a surge of gratitude. "Okay, Mom," he replied, his voice steadier now. Lillian started the car, giving him one more comforting smile. "We're a team, remember?" Caleb nodded, feeling stronger with her words echoing in his mind. She dropped him off at school with a kiss on the forehead, watching him walk into school with a determined stride. Caleb waved back at her, his confidence growing with each step. The school doors loomed ahead, but he felt ready to face whatever the day brought. Lillian watched until he disappeared inside, proud of his courage. As she drove away, she kept thinking about their plan, ready to support him through it all. Caleb's small figure had never looked so brave. Lillian drove back home, her mind racing with plans on how to assist Caleb with the lost ring. She thought about posting on local forums, contacting the police, or even checking lost and found ads. As the familiar streets passed by, her resolve to help Caleb grew stronger. He had taken a brave step, and she wanted to support him fully. Pulling into the driveway, Lillian knew the first step was to examine the ring more closely. There had to be some clue. Upon returning, she headed straight for the toy box, now a chest of secrets, and opened it with a sense of purpose. The lid creaked as she lifted it, revealing the jumble of toys and memories inside. Lillian took a deep breath, determined to find out more about the ring. Each item she moved aside brought back a flood of memories, but she stayed focused. The ring was their key to solving this mystery and helping Caleb find peace. She removed layers of forgotten toys and trinkets, each layer revealing more about Caleb's childhood. Old action figures, tiny cars, and half-finished craft projects emerged from the depths of the box. Lillian smiled at a faded drawing Caleb had made in kindergarten, but she kept her hands moving. The deeper she dug, the more determined she became. These relics of the past held the answer to a puzzle they were only beginning to piece together. Finally reaching the secret compartment, she pulled it open, her heart mixed with curiosity and concern. The hidden space seemed smaller than she remembered, but it still held its secrets. Lillian hesitated for a moment, her fingers brushing the edge of the compartment. What if the ring led to something bigger than they anticipated? She shook off her doubts and lifted the lid, her determination outweighing her fear. Caleb needed her to be strong and proactive. The empty compartment now revealed the ring, sparkling under the room's light, its mystery deepening her resolve to find its owner. Lillian stared at it, mesmerized by its simple beauty. She could see why Caleb had been so drawn to it. Gently, she picked it up, the cool metal heavy in her hand. There had to be a way to return it to its rightful owner. Lillian's thoughts swirled with possibilities, each one bringing her closer to a solution. Lillian picked up the ring, its weight significant in her palm, and inspected it for any clue that might hint at its owner. She turned it over carefully, feeling the smooth metal and noting its elegant design. The ring seemed to hold a quiet history, and Lillian was determined to uncover it. Holding it up to the light, she squinted, searching for any markings or inscriptions that might offer a hint. Her heart raced with anticipation, eager to solve this puzzle. She noted the date inscribed inside the band, but found no name or initials to guide her further. The date was old, from many years ago, which added to the mystery. Lillian frowned slightly, trying to piece together its significance. Without a name, the search would be harder, but she wasn't discouraged. The date was a start, a small breadcrumb on the path to finding the ring's owner. She made a mental note of it, hoping it would prove useful later. Her eyes caught the fine craftsmanship and expensive look of the ring, wondering about the stories it could tell. It was clear that the ring was special, possibly a cherished family heirloom. Lillian imagined the hands it had passed through, the moments it had witnessed. She sighed, feeling a pang of sadness for the person who had lost it. The ring deserved to be back with its rightful owner, and she was determined to make that happen, no matter what. With no immediate answers, she decided her next step was to search for any lost and found posts online. Lillian grabbed her laptop and settled at the kitchen table, fingers flying over the keys. She typed in keywords, hoping for a match. Forums, social media, and local community pages all became her focus. Her eyes scanned the screen, searching for any mention of a lost ring. It was a long shot, but she had to try. Someone out there might be looking for this treasure. Firing up her laptop, Lillian scoured community forums and social media, hoping for a lead, but found nothing relevant. Post after post, she sifted through the digital haystack, frustration slowly building. The screen's glow lit up her determined face as she clicked through endless pages. Despite the lack of immediate results, she refused to give up. The ring's owner was out there somewhere. Lillian leaned back, thinking of her next move. The search had only just begun. Undeterred by the dead end online, Lillian planned to ask around the neighborhood, hoping someone might recognize the ring. She grabbed her notepad and the ring, slipping them into her purse. With a deep breath, she set out, determined to find answers. The neighborhood had always been close-knit, and Lillian hoped that someone might have a clue. Each step felt purposeful as she walked towards the first house, ready to uncover the ring's story. She spent the afternoon visiting neighbors, showing the ring and asking if they knew anyone who had lost it. Lillian knocked on doors, her polite inquiries met with varying degrees of curiosity and concern. She held out the ring, explaining its discovery and her desire to return it to its owner. The sun climbed higher as she moved from house to house, each conversation a mix of hope and disappointment. Lillian's determination never wavered. Each door opened a conversation, but no one recognized the ring or knew of anyone missing it. Lillian listened patiently as neighbors shared their thoughts, some suggesting she try local jewelers or check with nearby communities. The afternoon wore on, and though no clear answers emerged, Lillian appreciated every interaction. Each door closed with a promise to keep an eye out, leaving her both hopeful and frustrated. The mystery of the ring remained unsolved. Lillian appreciated the community's willingness to help and took notes on any tips or suggestions she received. She jotted down names, phone numbers, and ideas, her notepad filling up quickly. One neighbor suggested posting flyers, while another mentioned checking with the local historical society. Lillian thanked each person, her heart warmed by their kindness. Though no one had the answer, their support bolstered her resolve. She knew she was on the right path, even if it was a winding one. As the day waned, she returned home, her list of leads exhausted, but not her determination. The sky turned orange and pink as Lillian walked back, her steps slower but her spirit undimmed. She placed the notepad and ring on the kitchen table, thinking about the next steps. Caleb would be home soon, and she wanted to share her efforts with him. The search had only begun, and Lillian was ready for whatever came next. Picking Caleb up from school, Lillian shared her fruitless day with him, seeing his guilt resurface. "I talked to so many neighbors," she said, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. Caleb's shoulders slumped as he listened. No one recognized the ring, but everyone was kind and willing to help. Caleb looked out the window, the weight of his actions pressing on him again. "I'm sorry, Mom," he murmured, feeling the guilt gnaw at him once more. In the car, Caleb apologized for his initial dishonesty, the weight of his actions clear in his voice. "I should have told you right away," he admitted, his voice shaky. Lillian reached over, squeezing his hand. "I was just scared." Lillian's heart ached for him, understanding the fear that had driven him to hide the truth. "It's okay, Caleb. You did the right thing by telling me now," she said, her voice full of reassurance and love. Lillian squeezed his hand, reassuring him that honesty was the best path forward, and they would solve this together. "We'll find the owner, I promise," she said softly. Caleb nodded, feeling a bit lighter. "We're a team, remember?" she added with a smile. Caleb managed a small smile back, the support from his mother easing his worries. They both knew it wouldn't be easy, but facing the challenge together made it seem more manageable. They discussed next steps, Lillian encouraging Caleb's involvement as a way to learn and grow from the experience. "What should we do next?" she asked, genuinely interested in his ideas. Caleb thought for a moment, his brow furrowing in concentration. "Maybe we could make some flyers and put them up around the neighborhood," he suggested. Lillian nodded, impressed by his proactive thinking. "That's a great idea, Caleb. We can work on that together tonight." Arriving home, they planned their evening, determined to continue their quest to find the ring's owner. Lillian set her keys on the counter and pulled out paper and markers. "Let's make those flyers," she said, smiling at Caleb. He eagerly joined her at the table, the weight of his guilt lifting as they worked side by side. "We'll figure this out," Lillian assured him. Together, they brainstormed and created a plan, ready to take the next step in their journey. "Let's make these as eye-catching as possible," she suggested. Caleb nodded, already envisioning the bright, bold flyers they would create. The table quickly became a whirlwind of creativity, with mother and son diving into the project with gusto. Working together, they designed flyers with a picture of the ring and contact information, making each one personal. Lillian sketched a rough outline of the ring, while Caleb added vibrant colors and catchy headlines. "How about this?" he asked, showing her a flyer with a bright border and big friendly letters. "Looks great," Lillian replied, adding their phone number at the bottom. They made sure every detail was clear, hoping someone would recognize the ring and reach out. The evening passed with them cutting, drawing, and writing, their teamwork turning the task into a bonding activity. Lillian and Caleb shared stories and laughed as they worked, the tension of the past few days easing away. "Remember that time we made posters for the school bake sale?" Lillian asked, smiling at the memory. "Yeah, and we sold out in an hour," Caleb replied, his laughter filling the room. The flyer making became more than just a task. It was a moment of connection. By night's end, they had a stack of completed flyers ready to be distributed, both feeling hopeful about the next day. "We did it," Caleb said, looking at the pile with a satisfied grin. Lillian ruffled his hair affectionately. "Great job, kiddo. Tomorrow we'll put these up all over town." Caleb nodded, his excitement growing. As they cleaned up, both felt a renewed sense of purpose. The ring's owner was out there, and they were one step closer to finding them. Saturday morning found Lillian and Caleb distributing flyers throughout town, visiting local shops and cafes to ask for help. Armed with their stack of brightly colored flyers, they walked down Main Street, determined to cover as much ground as possible. "Let's start at the bakery," Lillian suggested. Caleb nodded, his excitement palpable. They entered the cozy shop, greeted by the warm scent of fresh bread, ready to share their mission with anyone who would listen. "We found this ring and we're trying to return it to its owner," Caleb said earnestly, holding up a flyer. Most people took the flyer with interest, nodding sympathetically as they heard the story. Some offered suggestions or shared similar experiences. Lillian watched Caleb with pride as he spoke, impressed by his dedication and courage. Each interaction brought them one step closer. The community's support was evident, with many promising to spread the word or hang the flyers in their windows. "We'll definitely keep an eye out," said the cafe owner, pinning a flyer to the bulletin board. At the hardware store, an elderly man smiled and promised to tell his friends. Caleb's spirits lifted with every promise of help. Lillian felt a surge of gratitude for their supportive community. Together, they could make a difference and hopefully find the ring's owner. After a morning of hard work, they returned home. Exhausted but satisfied, they had done all they could. Caleb flopped onto the couch, a tired but happy grin on his face. "We passed out so many flyers," he said, his voice filled with accomplishment. Lillian nodded, setting the remaining flyers on the kitchen table. "We did great today," she agreed, her heart full. They had given it their all, and now it was time to wait and see what would happen. Sitting on the porch, they drank lemonade, discussing the day's efforts and watching as neighbors took flyers from their mailbox. "Do you think we'll hear from someone soon?" Caleb asked, taking a sip of his drink. Lillian shrugged, smiling gently. "I hope so. We've done everything we can." They watched the evening sky turn shades of pink and orange, feeling a sense of peace. The day had been productive, and their bond had grown stronger through the shared experience. Days passed without any calls or messages about the ring, leaving Lillian and Caleb to speculate about its possible origins. "Maybe it belonged to someone who moved away," Caleb suggested one afternoon. Lillian nodded thoughtfully. "Or perhaps it was lost by a visitor to the park," she added. Each day their curiosity grew, and they found themselves imagining different scenarios. The ring remained a mystery, and their shared speculation became a comforting routine amidst the uncertainty. One evening, while watching a movie, their conversation drifted to imaginative stories about the ring's mysterious owner. "What if it belonged to a runaway bride?" Caleb mused, eyes wide with excitement. Lillian chuckled. "Or a secret agent who had to leave it behind in a hurry," she countered. The movie played on in the background as they spun tales, each more creative than the last. Their imaginations ran wild, turning the unknown into a source of fun and connection. Their theories ranged from runaway brides to secret agents, each tale more fanciful than the last. Maybe it was part of a treasure hidden in the park, Caleb suggested, his voice filled with wonder. Or a family heirloom passed down through generations, Lillian added, her eyes twinkling. They laughed, enjoying the playful exchange. The ring had become more than just a lost item. It was a catalyst for bonding and creativity. Their stories brought them closer together. As they laughed and pondered, a knock at the door interrupted their musings, startling them both. The sudden sound broke their reverie, and they exchanged curious glances. Who could that be at this hour? Lillian wondered aloud, standing up. Caleb paused the movie, his curiosity piqued. The ring and their stories momentarily forgotten, they both felt a rush of anticipation. Lillian took a deep breath, heading towards the door, ready to face whatever awaited on the other side. She turned the knob slowly, peeking through the crack before opening it fully. The evening air rushed in, carrying with it the faint sounds of the neighborhood. Lillian's heart raced as she stepped forward, her mind swirling with possibilities. The unexpected visitor could be the key to unraveling the mystery of the ring. She took a deep breath, ready to greet whoever stood there. Lillian opened the door to find the mayor and his visibly uneasy wife standing on her porch, a surprising but familiar sight. "Mayor Anderson, Mrs. Anderson," she greeted, her surprise evident. The mayor smiled warmly, but his wife looked nervous, her hands clasped tightly together. "Good evening, Lillian," Mayor Anderson began. "We hope we're not intruding." Lillian shook her head, stepping aside to let them in. She could sense something important had brought them to her doorstep tonight. The mayor greeted her warmly, reminiscing briefly before explaining his visit was prompted by seeing one of Caleb's flyers. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" he said, glancing around the familiar living room. Lillian nodded, offering them seats. "We saw Caleb's flyer about the ring," he continued, his tone turning serious. "It caught our attention because—" He hesitated, looking at his wife. She sighed, her unease growing. "Because we believe it might be ours," she finished quietly. His wife hesitantly admitted to losing the ring in the park and her fear of confessing the truth, her eyes downcast. "I didn't know how to tell anyone," she said softly, her voice trembling. "It was a family heirloom, and I felt so ashamed." Lillian reached out, touching her arm reassuringly. "I'm glad you came," she said gently. Caleb, who had been listening intently from the doorway, felt a mix of emotions. He knew what he had to do next. Caleb, listening intently, fetched the ring and handed it back to her, his actions reflecting his recent lessons in honesty. "Here it is," he said, placing the ring gently in Mrs. Anderson's hand. She looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you, Caleb," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the situation sinking in. Caleb felt a surge of pride and relief, knowing he had done the right thing. The mayor's wife thanked them, and they all shared a moment of understanding, the experience enriching everyone with a deeper appreciation for truth and bravery. "You've shown great courage, Caleb," Mayor Anderson said, shaking his hand. Mrs. Anderson smiled, her gratitude evident. "This means more to us than you know." Lillian hugged Caleb, her heart full of pride. As they stood together, they knew this experience had brought them all closer, teaching valuable lessons about honesty, community, and the power of doing the right thing.